Hello, everybody. I'm here to talk about game jam and game jam prep. Uh, so let's get jamming. My name is Chris Hill. I'm a lead engineer over at Wizards of the Coast. I work on the content engineering team of Magic the Gathering Arena, and my opinions are my own. This is not an official Wizards presentation. And just to give you a quick overview of what we'll be talking about today, we'll just be going over some game jam essentials, moving on to talk about tools of various types, some tutorials that you might find useful to prep for a jam, and why do we even do this? So this is one of my favorite memes. This is the jam experience for me in meme form, where things are going well. Oh my God! Oh no, we're in the water and we don't know what we're doing. And then oh yay, everything's okay again, and we're good. Yay! So this can be kind of the experience like Friday night, things are going well, you're excited. Saturday, it's a little rocky, but you always seem to recover and get it done and maybe lose a little sleep, but that's okay. So here's some helpful tips to help you get the most out of a jam. So if we're going to go over planning your jam, planning your time, uh, where to get art and audio if you're not an artist or an audio artist. How to work together. What are some good ways to collaborate? And also, what kind of engine or tools you might want to use under the hood to make a game. So a lot of indie developers who became overnight successes were working at it for 10 years. This is a quote from Dan Edelman, and he kind of was talking about this. And I think a lot of times people think game developers kind of come out of the woodwork with a game, and they just they get a billion downloads and they're rock stars and they won the lottery, and it's just kind of not necessarily the case. A lot of developers started out in making small toy games at jams and doing things with their friends, finding people they liked working with, and kind of iterating on that. And so, Friday night's kind of where that experience starts, right? You're going to meet some people that you can work with, and that you hopefully can gel with, and get brainstorming and prototyping. And first night of the jam or the beginning of the jam, really it's idea time. And I like to say paper is fast, paper is first, right? Focus on writing things down either on actual paper or digital paper before getting too caught up in code, caught up in high quality illustrations and all those things. Just get some ideas down and iterate, and then I also like to scale back a little bit and go, okay, what can we really do here, within the next couple of days. And then on Saturday, it's good to get something playable. Keep it simple. Uh, I like to think that Saturday afternoon, if I have something that's playable, which seems like a really short amount of time, but that's kind of a good point, right? Uh, that's I've hit that sweet spot, and I can then focus more on collaborating with people. Ask other people, okay, play my game, check this out, get feedback on the game, watch them play your game, and then you can go, oh, I never saw that before. Oh man, my game is like really hard, because you're the expert on your own game. Sometimes it's not really obvious that your game is very difficult, and that's a common occurrence with jam games. And then scope it down. At that point in time, you might have a playable something or other, but you don't necessarily have the 5,000 things that you originally wrote out on Friday night done. So prioritize the highest items, and less can be more, and kill your darlings. On a Sunday, I like to kind of consider it to be polish day, right? At the end of Saturday, you've gotten the basics of the game, the bones worked out. And on Sunday, take that jam game and give it some sound effects, give it some particle systems. Particle systems are your friend. Add explosions upon death and of your units. Add sound effects. Add tutorial screens if necessary, right? All those little details that are going to really sell the game. Pong can look AAA if you put the effort into it, and so it's very useful. And I also like to make a video. Throw it on YouTube if you can. If you can, also make a web version and throw it on itch.io. This is a much more common thing that people can do, and so uh, Unity makes it pretty straightforward to throw the game up onto itch.io instead. And it can get you a job. And here's a game jam game that I made with a friend. And we made this video based off of the game that we put together. And my friend Bobby did get a job, partially based off of the strength of our game jam game that we made over the weekend. I'm not hearing audio on this, but that's maybe just me. Okay, so planning recap. Friday, planning. Saturday, building. Sunday, polishing. It's salt to taste for whatever time you have, right? But this is kind of my guideline for myself whenever I'm jumping into a jam game. Another thing I like to point out is to credit people's work. I think it's pretty common for people to want to Google image something or grab a track and just put it in their game. But in the global game jam in particular, but in most game jams, everything should be released under a Creative Commons license, and so therefore everything you make should be under that license already, or a compatible license. So, for example, here is the credit screen within the Escort Wing game that I just showed off, showing credits for developers, some info on the Unity, giving some shout outs to my people in the Tucson game dev community, and then the audio, which was not made by me, by Diamond Ace and Docs. And I want to always give credit where credit's due. So some other tips and tricks for jamming: use whatever works, right? If you are a Python programmer, use Pygame or RenPy or a similar system. Don't get too slogged down in feeling like you need to use Unreal because it's pretty or something. Too much coding, not enough designing. When you're in a jam, you might want to just keep on adding features, but sometimes it's more useful to take a step back and just think about the balance of the game and the way that it plays. This is that kind of point that I talk about, the Saturday afternoon point, if you will, where it's like, okay, get some other people to play the game, get some perspective onto it, and then go, okay, I want to make it easier, make it shorter, speed some things up, right? Just kind of tweak the turn the knobs that you've coded already instead of making new knobs, if you will. I also like to say leveraging pre-existing tools and code is not cheating. Whatever code you bring to the jam beforehand is totally legal. You don't need to reinvent the wheel from scratch every jam. And a lot of the people who are great jammers have a huge number of libraries that they've built over previous periods that they can use at their disposal. Content is king, but put it where people are going to see it. If you make a 40 level game that is 45 minutes to an hour of content, in terms of a jam game, it's better to have a tight 5 minutes than it is to have a loose 45, right? You want to put all of your oomph and all of your polish into that first 5 minutes. That's kind of the nugget of the experience. There's nothing wrong with having a long game if you got the content, but usually it's a question. It's not going to be seen by anybody, right? So I like to always say use version control. You do you. If you like, if you can, throw files around with Drive, go for it. But I think that version control is it's an industry standard. Usually, studios use something called Perforce. GitHub is a popular solution outside of games for version control as well. And if you aren't familiar with what version control is, I recommend studying up on it and learning about it, especially if you want to get a job in the industry. Using version control can help you out with that. And lastly, use what you know. I kind of consider this to be, if you know the Unity engine, use the Unity engine. And don't go into the game trying to learn the Unity engine. Prep beforehand, at least a little bit. You don't have to be a pro at things, but at least have it installed, have done the Unity Essentials training, etc. All right, let's talk about some cool tools that we use for developing games. A lot of these people might be familiar with already, but let's talk about some details. First off, a lot of jammers are coders, not artists. So this slide is for you, right? If you can't art, you can use others' works, but I always like to say, don't steal. Grab work that you have the rights to use within a game. Some great places here, Kenny.nl. Kenny.nl is he has tons of different free high quality assets that you can use for prototyping games and using within your jam games. In addition, there's opengameart.org, which is a fantastic like older website, as you could tell from the design, with a lot of different artwork, audio, 3D models, everything across the board. Newgrounds, not in addition to having a lot of content and entertainment, it does have a lot of music. And some users are fine with you using their audio if you can't find a artist, a musician at the jam site. And same with SoundCloud. Uh, the Docs artist that I used for the Escort Wing game, I found this on SoundCloud. LabChirp is a really easy sound effects generator, which you can use to create quick, simple bleeps and bloops for your game. Another similar product, which a lot of people might be familiar with, is SFXR, as it's written. And yeah, both of these are similar sound effect generators that you can use to make your own sounds. All right, let's talk a little bit about engines. If you aren't familiar with what a game engine is, it's a tool used for content creation. It has a lot of the bare bones essentials of working with graphics, working with sound and animation. Gives you tools for making all of the beautiful arts come together into a game. So Unity is a C# based game engine. It's very versatile. It has great support, and one of the most useful things is easy export to the web. I will have worked on a jam game and I'll be like, oh gosh, I hope this works. And I press a button to build the game and put it on the web, and it actually works. And I'm like, oh, nice. That's surprising. So and pro tip for if you are going to use Unity, make sure everyone is on the exact same version, as in 2022.12.3.f1.b, right? All the way down to the last numbers and letters. And the second tip is use the LTS version. LTS stands for long-term support. These are the versions of Unity that they're constantly updated with the most bug fixes. They are the most stable. You will have the least problems with them. Unreal is another great option. It is a AAA engine. It's best looking out of the box. It's great for artists if you are an artist. It works via visual scripting in something called Unreal Blueprints or in C++. It is the least flexible engine in the sense that it is built for your AAA experience, which is usually a first-person shooter of some sort, and or open world area, open world game. And so I usually say if you're making that kind of game, great, go for Unreal. Like out of the box, you are in FPS mode, right? If you're not making that kind of game, it's probably going to be a little bit more difficult to drive a game in the style you're after. I would not make like a 2D game or a mobile game within Unreal. Speaking of 2D games or mobile games, well, 2D games at least. Godot is a fantastic engine that can do 3D as well. It is very lightweight. If you think about an Unreal game might be gigs, Unity game may be hundreds of megs. The Godot game is going to be can be tens of megs. It's great. It works well in terms of programming and GD script. It has a good amount of features. It's but like I said, it's lightweight compared to Unity, and it works well on Linux. Now let's talk a little bit about art tools. So Sprite is a pixel art program. It is not free. It is $20, and it is a great use of your $20. So don't go out to eat for a day and give um, the developer $20. It's great. And this is the other art tool I use besides Photoshop, and allows you to do animation in addition to a lot of the fun, simple uh, illustrations. If you don't want to spend $20, you could also use Piskel. Piskel is an online tool, but also downloadable, and has very similar feature set to Sprite. And then, the 900-pound gorilla in the room, Photoshop. I've been using Photoshop since, I'm not kidding, 2.0. I've owned Photoshop since 4.0, and so I've been spending my money to Adobe for a long time, and I'm an unapologetic advocate of their products. They're great, and it is the gold standard for image editing for a reason. And they also have a lot of other projects at the $55 price point for image editing, UX prototyping, vector illustration, all kinds of fun stuff. The other free Photoshop-like program is GIMP, or the GNU image manipulation program. And it's rough around the edges, but it will get you there. And so like I say, you get what you pay for here. It's okay. In a similar vein of free software, but one with less UI headaches, is Blender. Uh, Blender has come a long way over its early days, and it is easily a professional level, high quality 3D editor. It also works well with Unity. Caveat there, importing 3D into Unity from any editor usually requires some kind of conversation with the team and figure out scaling and your uniform textile densities and all those little details. Yeah, great. Can't say enough good things about Blender. It's the kitchen sink of 3D. Let's talk a little bit about project collaboration and management tools. One of my favorite tools is Miro. Miro is a collaborative whiteboard tool. It is kind of an infinite whiteboard, and you could just keep throwing images on it. This is my everything everywhere board. I have everything everywhere on this board, and I just figured I'd show you when I need references for women's hairstyles. This is that part of the board. So if I need to know, I'm looking for a cool cut, this is my reference. And you can, everyone can collaborate on the same board and just throw ideas onto it, throw text on there, and kind of get a general feel of where you want to go. It's just a great tool for ideation. And as I mentioned, honorable mention for PureRef. It isn't a collaboration tool. It's more of like a concept artist tool. But PureRef is a fantastic program as well, similar to Miro. So Trello is a task management software. If anyone has ever used this before, I been using this for years. I use this with my wife for our grocery shopping. It keeps track of things to do quickly and easily. You can have all the things you want your team to do, or you on your own to do in the to-do column. Move things over into the doing column, and when you're done with it, move into the done, and just stay organized that way. It's very straightforward, very simple way of doing it. Google Docs is another fantastic tool to brainstorm your designs. When we're talking paper, paper is fast, paper is first. Google Docs is fast as well, right? Get everybody into the same document. Just start typing away on Friday night. Get those ideas together. You can also use sheets to kind of start creating an inventory. If you're working with a musician or artist, you may want to ship them an SFX list, right? And have an understanding of the sound effects you might need, the audio tracks you might want to have created. So you might want to keep that in Google Sheets. Same with art. You might want to keep your art briefs in there and pass those over to your artist as well. And of course, you can also use it for task management instead of Trello. Another option for project collaboration is the GitHub Wiki. There's things like issues in here, but I think mainly the wiki is what I find the most interesting. You can edit any markdown file in the GitHub website itself. Same with GitLab if you're into that. So if you're using Git for your version control and you have it up on GitHub, this is an option that you have at your disposal. All right, so let's move on here to some toot and toots. What are some good tutorials you might want to be interested in watching before doing a jam? I think prepping for a jam can be, if you got the time, watching a video here and there can be useful. Just kind of getting your mind in that space, right? It's dangerous to go unprepped. So I think, you can prep by going to Unity Learn and checking out their Unity Essentials courses and whatever other areas, depending upon your specialization, right? You might be interested in the junior programmer path. You might be interested in the art path or audio path, and get started in an area that's of interest to you. And just like to shout out that frequently these tutorials are out of date. And so that can be really confusing if you're looking around. And, shout out to our Tucson Game Dev Discord here. If you have any questions, come on by. We are more than welcome to answer them for you. Another great tutorial channel on YouTube, Brackeys. Brackeys has a number of tutorials, and they are all essentially, some of the highest rated ones. You can see he's got 7 million views on some of these videos. Again, possibly out of date, but they're popular for a reason. Highly recommend checking out Brackeys. I believe Brackeys is kind of semi-retired from YouTube and is moving on to other things. I think he's just done really well in the YouTube space, and now he can live a life of leisure or something. I don't know. Another of my favorites YouTube channels to check out is Infenzia. Um, I think that Learn Low Poly Modeling in Blender 2.9 is the best Blender video on the internet. If you want to learn how to use Blender, I probably would just follow along with Infenzia. Uh, in general, great starter videos, and also coined the phrase E to extrude, S to scale, because he's always pressing E to extrude and S to scale over and over again to make all these cool little models. And this is a great style for jam, right? You can't go highly realistic, but you can get a lot of cool looking stuff quickly using a kind of low poly art style that he has a lot of great videos on. And I'd also like to give a shout out to GDC, or the Game Developers Conference. This is less jam specific, but for those who haven't heard of this channel, the GDC Vault, or the GDC channel, has some of the highest quality professional videos that you could find, made by industry veterans, and just you can find something that's interesting there for sure. And I'll point out the best GDC video, one of the top videos here on the channel, is 20 years, 20 lessons learned from fellow wizard Mark Rosewater. Quite entertaining. He hits it on the entertainment set perspective or scale, and he also hits it on the information scale. Lots of useful information, very entertaining. All right, cool. So those are some tutorials to kind of prep you if you so choose before your jam. But let's talk a little bit about why games. Like, why are we making games instead of playing games, right? It seems like, there's a lot of options. We could do it for fame. We could do it for money. We could do it because nobody else is making the game I wanted to play, so I had to do it myself. And this is pretty frequently the case, right? It's like, oh, I've got a vision, right? And sometimes you want to just make something that surprises you, right? You can make something and it speaks back to you in a way when you're creating something procedurally, and you're like, wow, I never would have imagined that. Things just emerge out of the game. You can also do it to make art, but making games is hard. And yet we seek out these challenges without any obvious reward. We tend to value effort, and the more effort something takes, the more we tend to value it. We can learn to enjoy the journey, right? But but regardless of the destination, and the effort itself can be rewarding. Also, researchers have found out that rewarding effort and not the outcome prompted people to seek out more difficult tasks later, even if they didn't get additional rewards. And I personally get an extreme sense of satisfaction out of accomplishing something difficult. So let's talk a little bit about a jam game called Lupat Hero or Lupath Hero. This is a game made by Four Quarters, a group of developers who've made a number of game jam games before it. They gained some notoriety in 2015 for the Please Don't Touch Anything, a game where the player is stuck in a room and given a single task. Don't touch anything, especially the charming red button centered in the room. And the first version of what would eventually become Loop Hero was an experiment born out of a game jam, an entry into the 2019 Ludum Dare game jam. But it had one big problem: it didn't work. The character could walk forward, and that was it. No monster fighting. So this looks pretty, but it's all smoke and mirrors, really. But they had the general concept that they wanted to make, and they stuck with it. And they got a deal with Devolver Digital, one of the better indie publishers out there, and they're not doing so bad, right? They hit 1 million copies sold on Steam in December 9th, and I partially chose Loop Hero because it's a game jam game, but also a game jam game that is it's a game that I personally love. It is one of the best games I've played recently. I have a sickening number of hours into this on my Steam hours played. So, very recommended game. But remember, they didn't start out that way. They jammed, they prototyped, they found the fun in their prototype, and they iterated on it. From a short weekend, not only can great games come, but also friendships. So I hope you all, more than anything, have a good time and meet some possibly new friends. So, thank you. As always, I like to give credit where credit's due. This presentation template is not something I made. It's something that I grabbed off of SlidesGo. Attribution there. If you ever want to reach out to me, there's my work email and I should probably remove Twitter from this slide because I am off Twitter. But you can always grab me in the Tucson Game Dev Discord. More information on the TucsonGameDev.com website. You can get a link there. And that's it. So, yeah, thank you. Any questions?
Is there an invite on that TucsonGameDev.com to the Discord channel?
Yes, the second link from the left on the top, but I could also copy that link and I'll just throw that in chat for you so you can just jump in.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm. Photopea is a free open source version of Photoshop that I think is better than GIMP.
Oh yeah,
cool.
It's
That's
great.
A good tip.
And it's all online too.
Oh yeah? Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. I will have to update my slides.
And it's just like a straight rip off of Photoshop.
Really?
Thanks for the great presentation. Liza just asked me whether I want to do project management or UI UX design for in the role, and I'm thinking like this is my first game jam. I don't know if I should do project management, although I have experience with it with other things.
Okay.
I guess I was asking like, what do you think?
Well, I think it really kind of comes down to personality type and passion sometimes. But if you're the kind of person who is good at kind of organizing people, I'm a lead engineer on my team, right? So a lot of my job is spent doing project management tasks, right? So I can definitely, I can feel the vibe of project management, but I could also be a coder. So if you like are used to using programs like Trello, or you want to get better at using Trello and organizing documents and designing things. I think that can be a really positive route. In terms of UX, I didn't really kind of get into UX in the slides, but there are things like I believe Flutter is a tool, and sorry, yeah, Adobe XD is an option as well. That's part of the Adobe Creative Cloud suite. Draw.io is a diagramming tool that I've actually used for mockups with success as well. But if it can be really helpful, especially during the pre-production or in the beginning of the project, to have somebody who's focused on just like, okay, we're going to have a shop screen, and then we're going to have a combat phase, and then we're going to have a salvage phase, and this is what it's going to look like. Because sometimes everyone has a different idea in their head of what the final game is going to be like. And I think as a if you were to be in that role of UX and producer, your main focus and role would be to make sure that everybody had the same game in their head,
Yeah.
and that can be a really helpful thing to do.
Intersect. Yeah. I was curious, do you use Figma at all?
So I've never used Figma, no, but I'm familiar with it. XD is very similar to Figma.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks.